H, well, H is this thing here, which is our object, which refers to our optimized container. We add the end method onto that object that does this. So we've got h.end that removes the hide, and I, which also removes the hide. Two ways of removing the hide. When do we use them? Okay, so here we go. This is our standard data layer respectful instantiation. And we add a .hide method to that, which is h. H is h.end. This is cool. So that when optimize loads, we've got the hide method, so we can go window.datalayer.hide.end. When optimize loads, that's what it calls. That's how optimize reveals the page when optimize is loaded. Does that make sense? That is a couple of mental leaps there.
Is it like a double negative? So the default is off, and then if it sees a rule to not be off, sorry, not be on it, then turns it.
Well, if it's not hidden, the hide.end method isn't available, so it's denied. Doesn't matter. If it is available, if window data layer hide end is available and we call it, it's only going to remove or try to remove a style. If the style isn't applied, it doesn't matter. If it is applied, that's good, we get rid of it. So when optimize loads, as soon as it possibly can, it reveals the page. Okay? The other worst case scenario is if optimize doesn't load in time, then we use I. So if we've got a timeout which is defaulted to 4 seconds, way too long, way too long, 1 second is all you need, or less, then we'll call I. In the event of optimize not loading in time, then we call I removes the async hide style, and then the document is shown. Either way, optimize loading or not loading, you're going to reveal what optimize has done to your page. Okay? So that's pretty useful stuff. There's some neat techniques in there that we can actually use in our JavaScript. But my question is, do you actually want to do your hiding of all pages, every page where you've got your optimized script? I don't think you do. I think you can, putting the user experience first, you can decide not to hide, even if it's only for 100 milliseconds. That's 100 milliseconds that you don't get back. We don't want to have to do this everywhere. This is where we start to think, have we actually got permission from the user? Have we got consent to actually do any testing anyway? So if they haven't given consent, we shouldn't be doing any of this. So let's knock that off. So rather than saying, as in the documentation, async hide style, async hide script, then data layer, I suggest you put the data layer first before anything else. Now that data layer is going to get written by your site, and your site is going to say, yeah, we're running a test here, or a test is permitted here, and the user has consent, go ahead, do your stuff. Then it runs through the stuff that I've just talked about. If you don't have consent or you're not running a test, we don't need to do this. We save computation cycles, UX is better. Happy days. So we can only do async hide and test if we're allowed and the test is valid. Now, if anybody saw the news recently around British Airways, did you see British Airways, the data breach? Did anybody actually see the script that was injected on that page? Yeah. So it's a very simple little script that put a listener on the payment form submit button, and when that was clicked, the script said, right, let's grab every single field, every single piece of information in the field, and send it off to baways.com. Doesn't look too suspicious, but bloody hell it was. So all of BA payment details, a lot of BA payment details, were going off to baways.com, which is owned by not British Airways. Not cool, data breach. So, the armor-plated underpants that you're getting here is that the data layer is spat out by the website. It protects you against anything that might be injected by Optimize or by GTM, whatever. Anything spurious that could be in an Optimize experiment or whatever, you can say, no, you're not running a test here. You can't inject just random stuff. You have to get some sort of approval and be allowed to run this. Okay? So not only is it improving user experience, it's also protecting you from potentially spurious JavaScript injection. Handy. Okay? So what have we got? Right, now we're on to, now we've done our async hide, sorry, data layer, async hide script. Now we're starting to load optimize. So that's what the documentation suggests, but I say no, especially if you're running GTM, knock off your GA set page view. anybody who has left that in and you're using GTM to do page views, you're going to double up on your page views. So GTM will do a page view, and this will do a page view. So scrape that off, get rid of it, nasty, if you're using GTM. Here's another one. This is what causes, quite often, will cause optimizers to say, your implementation is shonky, not valid, whatever. Why? Well, this is creating a tracker object based on this UA tracking code with cookie domain set to auto. Seems reasonable enough, pretty safe bet. But if you've got your GA settings, okay, cookie domain auto, but if I'm also setting allow link of false, anonymize IP true, use client ID true, and for whatever reason you're setting your cookie expiry to a year rather than 2, you've got a whole lot of settings in GA settings that don't match up here. That's where Optimize gets his pants in a twist, and that's where you get your errors. So we say, whatever you've got in your GA settings, you really should be doing this here as well. Now, it's not the end of the world. It's not necessarily going to affect the data collection, but you're going to get rid of something that is wrong and doing it right. That's a good thing to do. Doing shit right is a good idea. So take a careful look at your GA settings variables and make sure your optimized implementation is mirroring. Anything that you do in GA settings, remember, you can do using the JavaScript API as well. It's all documented, dead easy. So where are we? So we're doing our data layer done right, back targeting based on whether or not we're allowed to then do optimize. Then we can go in our style scripts, then our optimize done right, and then we can allow GTM to do whatever it needs to do. That's what you should be aiming for with your optimized implementation. Okay? Next bit, all right. Whether it's good or bad, whatever, we know certain frameworks, React, Angular, that kind of stuff, will do stuff like this, where you've got an unordered list with a style of _209 uppercase L, lowercase w, which my spidey sense is tingling. I have a feeling this may change at some point if the site got released again, if we did a deployment. So any sort of test hanging off that kind of style is brittle. It's going to break. You're not going to have a happy day. What we can do is knock off either of these guys, but use a longer selector. Ew, that's even more brittle. Yeah, we're not going to go down that route. This is really not cool. If you're using a framework that does use dynamically generated classes or IDs, not a problem. I suggest you use something like this. Use your own custom attributes on your elements to target those things that you know are important, you know you want to measure them, and you know you're going to test them. So you can say my data ID is whatever my element to optimize is, make that unique, and then I can reference, this is a link, I can reference that in here, and Optimizer is quite happy with that. It's not going to change, it's quite stable. Yes, it is a little bit more expensive and slower to reference a custom attribute on an element, but I'm happy to sacrifice that little bit of speed penalty for something that is reliable, and my test is going to be robust. So I'm happy to do that. Okay, give that a whirl. This is quite, I'm going to click on this one actually. This is quite cool. I didn't know this. I don't know whether anybody else knew this, but if an element has an ID, then it's available as a global variable. Is that new to anyone else?
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Cool, I'll show you. Boink. Yeah. There you go. So I've got my H1 with an ID of heading, and I can reference heading.text content, and it's all in there. That's kind of neat, isn't it? I thought so. But I think that might be useful for targeting elements that do actually have IDs that don't change. Happy days. This is a source of frustration that you may have had. This is conversionworks.co.uk website, and I wanted to run a test on a menu item that is only exposed on a hover. So within the Optimize editor, since I hover here, it doesn't do anything. So I have to go to the interactive mode, then I can hover, and I can see the things under there that I want to change. I want to do text changes. But as soon as I go back into editor mode, the bloody thing goes away again. Urgh. So we use DevTools to force a state on an element. So I go find wherever it is, right-click it, and then go force state hover. Any of these are very useful. Force state hover, and then my text is visible, and I can go change the text on the element. Winning. Happy days. Right. So here's the thing. This is useful in many different ways. You might want to never test 10% of your users. Never test them. So if you're running a program of tests, I'm going to assume that you're running a robust, mature testing program, and across that entire range of tests, you want to know, did all those tests actually deliver any incrementality? Was this good? With 10% of people who haven't been tested, you can look at the metrics across the entire test program, comparing those who were with those who weren't, and that's going to give you an indication of, was the testing any good? You might also want to do parallel tests on the same page, but not have them overlap. So if we get 10% being tested on one test, 10% on another, those never overlap. This is quite handy. Who knows, maybe in the future, Optimize might have some form of personalization functionality. It would be naive to think that that's not going to happen. That was legally permissible, I could say that according to the law. So it would be astonishing to think that personalization isn't going to happen. So if you want to run a personalization treatment for 10% of users, then 20% of users, then 30, then 40, if you've got reliable 10% buckets of users, you can apply them in these different ways. How do we do that? So we use the client ID. It's a cookie that exists already, so we're going to leverage that. It's a number, and if we divide that number by 10, get the remainder, do mod 10 on the client ID, we're going to get a number between 1 and 10. Nice and randomized. So we can use that as a value which bucket you're going to live in, right? We can record that as a custom dimension. There we go, in our number 27. And we can set that using custom task. Remember, the client ID isn't available for a first hit until the hit is sent, so we use a custom task to intercept that hit and drop in the client ID there. So I've got the client ID bucket as 27 and the client ID all being set off. Once I've got this, then I can segment in reporting. If I'm doing a segment, I've got an audience. And if I've got an audience, then I can detarget them or target them as I see fit. So it's reliable 10% buckets that I can swap in and out as I see fit. Pretty handy. Okay. Then when you know, when a test is running on a page, there is a global JavaScript variable called GA-data, and you can see which experiments and which variants are running in that global variable, which is also a nice way of preventing test overlap across multiple tests. If we know that someone has seen experiment NPQ blah whatever, variant 0, we may choose to detarget those for future tests. There's many different ways you can use that, preventing test overlap. Custom activation is something that I think is really well worth pointing out, and you should custom activate as much as you can, as often as you can. Again, if you're doing React, Angular, Ajax, infinite scroll, or late loaded content, okay? So you're on a page that's loading some content late. You don't want to evaluate your test on page load. You really should be thinking about changing the activation event to custom event. Nicely shut down on the data layer, optimize.activate. Blah, blah, blah. Optimize will update the newly loaded elements accordingly. Existing elements where you've already applied your test treatment doesn't get affected. That's pretty neat. That's nice. So we've got a whole page, and we've applied our test treatment, then we scroll, we load some more content. As long as we fire the optimize.activate event, optimize activate event, then our test treatment gets applied only to the new stuff on the page. It's nice and consistent. So you should think about using optimize activate as much as you can in this kind of scenario. And it works the other way as well, which is quite neat. You can unroll changes. Especially on a single page app, this is really neat. So depending on the context change in a single page app, you can say apply or remove my test treatment. So what you'll need though is an extra variable here that says JavaScript variable state, updated, not updated, right? In ConversionWorks, if I set the new state as updated based on this test targeting, if I then fire an event, my state is updated, the event fires, the treatment is applied. If I then change to not updated, fire the event again, my changes get unrolled. So I can use the state variable and the event to only apply or de-apply my test treatment as I see fit. Really useful, really handy. Doesn't do JavaScript though. If you've got JavaScript changes, it can't unroll that for very good reasons. But if you're just doing textual changes, position, style, so on and so forth, you can apply an unroll based on the event and the value. Beat ID, okay? be organised, write a little love note to the future self. So rather than adding a whole bunch of changes, if you're pixel left, pixel right, pixel up, pixel down, you'll end up with a big long list like this. Okay, use the kebab icon, go and edit your changes, and then you can be really refined in terms of what your test is. Then, once your test wins, I do hope all your tests go green. I really wish you all the success. Then you can say to developers, when you're unrolling and saying, make this a permanent fixture, you've got far fewer changes that you need them to go and apply. A lot less complex. Actually, during the test, it needs to do a lot less work. The test is just going to be better. Okay, that's all I've got for now. And it has been an absolute pleasure. If you liked this, there's more to come. Just follow, like, that kind of stuff. Thank you.